This is Jordan Peterson. If you're unfamiliar, then I don't know what rock you've been living under. Anyway, he's kind of a right-wing extremist at this point, kind of always has been. Very full of himself, right? Well, he decided to interview a guy named Eric Metaxas, guy on the right here. Eric Metaxas wrote a book called Letter to the American Church. That is what my next book's going to be about. I think I'm going to name my next book, Letter to the American Church, A Response. He brought him on basically to talk about it. Well, his book, Letter to the American Church, is pretty much framed as though we live in Nazi Germany right now. We're in Nazi Germany. And Eric Metaxas and Jordan Peterson are the victims of Nazis right now. They're being attacked in the form of being canceled, and they're being criticized and everything. And that's exactly what the Nazis did to the Jews. They criticized their bad behavior, right? It's about all they did. Anyway, I wanted to listen to these two people complain about being persecuted by Nazis. By the way, I haven't even told you who the Nazis are yet that they think are persecuting them. Do you want to know who? Trans people and trans allies. Those are the Nazis in their world. Really, I'm not joking. So let's listen to these two people cry about being persecuted by trans people for believing that trans people should burn in a house fire. They can hold any belief they want. They chose to believe that trans people should burn in a house fire. Why are they being criticized for that? That's just wrong in their mind. Anyway, let's give it a listen. By the way, this isn't part one. If you didn't see the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll give context if it's missing. Oh, by the way, check out my book, owenmorgan.com/book. I would appreciate that very much. It's about Jehovah's Witnesses, my experience with them. It's called, well, the working title at the moment is Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses. It's useful for anybody, Christian, non-Christian, Jehovah's Witness, non-Jehovah's Witness, anybody, absolutely anybody. It's good for you. It's a book that should be interesting to you no matter who you are. So give that a look.
The works issue, this is how I understand it. You tell me what you think about this, if you would. So what I thought Luther was...
So up to this point, they were talking about... Here's the context on this. They were talking about whether you can get into the kingdom of God through faith or through works. Which does it take? Which one do you have to do? Do you have to have faith to do this stuff, or can you accomplish your goals through works or whatever? Can you just do it through faith? It depends on who you believe. The answer, if you believe Jesus, if you're a Christian, if you believe in Christ and you follow Christ Jesus, the answer is you have to take care of the poor and you have to love everybody and do everything you can to feed the hungry and give water to the thirsty and so on and so forth. If you believe in Paul, if you follow what Paul had to say, which I don't know why you would, but if you do, his answer was you just have to believe. That's it. You just have to believe you just have to believe that Jesus was the Lord or whatever. And just like that, you're saved. That is the faith or works debate settled right there. Do you believe Jesus or do you believe Paul? I tend to think that Jesus was the final arbiter on Christianity, but...
That's how I understand it. You tell me what you think about this, if you would. So what I thought Luther was trying to establish, and I think...
Martin Luther, by the by, was the guy responsible for the Protestant split. He was... Catholicism kind of controlled everything back in the day. And he famously nailed 99 theses to a wall or whatever, or to a door, I don't remember. Basically showing what they got wrong, what Catholicism gets wrong about things. And that was the Protestant split. I think it was in the 1500s, early 1500s. It led to the Protestant split and the Anabaptist split, famously. Anabaptists, you may not be aware, they're people like Mennonites and Amish, and there are some others, but they largely, some of the other Anabaptists stayed in Europe, like Eastern Europe, Russia and stuff. Anyway, that's who Martin Luther is. And what's his name? Eric Metaxas talks about Luther in some of his books.
This is wise, is that just because you have the privileges of a king doesn't mean that you're, walking the road to the kingdom of heaven, right? The mere fact that you've been provided with, or perhaps even earned, that's more complicated, with a certain degree of material prosperity isn't a signal message from God that you are on the right side of things. So you can't confuse.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what the hell he's even talking about right now.
Works with grace or with redemption. And you can't assume that someone who's rich is a more moral agent than someone who's poor merely because they have plenty. So
what are you even saying? I'm so lost. I know what each of these words means individually, but I'm struggling. Like, I am on the struggle bus here, man. What are you talking about?
Well, that's the point I think Luther was trying to make. That's my understanding.
I wrote a 450-page biography of Luther.
Okay, and how many citations did you use in that quote-unquote biography? I would bet money that he didn't use any citations. I use so many citations in my book, it's not even funny. It was a problem. I have 5 pages of citations. And those citations are small. They're like half the font size, and they're all crushed together. How many citations do you have in your book there, Eric? This guy's a propagandist. I honestly doubt that he has any.
And nowhere in my book do I touch on that idea. So I think it may follow from some of what Luther says, but I don't think principally what you just said is an important point, but I don't get it from Luther. I mean, I get it from other places. He doesn't seem to me ever to have worried about that. That doesn't seem to be on the list of things he was dealing with. I could walk back my claim. I would say then that my understanding is that that's the underlying rationale of the Protestant claim that you're not saved by works. It's more that the works themselves and their manifestation aren't inevitable proof of what would you say, God's appreciation for your existence. All right, let me put it this way. The point, and I think my dear friend Dennis Prager and I would differ on this, and it came out in your conversation with him. But I think the idea,
By the way, I'm on my way to beat the final boss in Final Fantasy VII now.
The idea, one of the principal ideas of the New Testament, and one of the principal things that Jesus was trying to say, to clarify, why many of the religious leaders of his time were off, was that what you think, your inner life is vital, is central. So if you write a big check to some wonderful charity, yes, it counts. It goes to help, medical research for cancer in children. Yes, there's a reality there. But if in your heart you only did it to impress some woman that you want to sleep with, God sees that. He doesn't just grade you on the externals. He's interested in your heart, in the disposition of your heart.
Okay, so he's saying that it doesn't really matter what you do. What matters is whether you're doing it for the right reasons. Alrighty?
And so Luther, there's so much to Luther, but I think the issue is that Luther was making this distinction. What he was worried about was this idea that you go through the mumbo jumbo and the rigmarole of the church, and that's all that counts. And he was saying, no. It is your faith that counts. In other words,
right, and you're making an existential case in some ways for that faith, which is that it's not assent to a series of explicit propositions, but a mode of conducting yourself in the world. And part of that mode is that you say what strikes you as true. That's what you do. That's how you live your life. And if you do that, well, that's part and parcel of having a genuine Christian faith.
Yes, it reveals that you believe there's such a thing as truth.
Dude, these people are so full of themselves, it's ridiculous. What the hell are they even saying right now?
And B, that you believe that the author of that truth, who is God, is with you in this. In other words, you don't say, well, hey, I'm just gonna do this because it's the noble thing. It's like, no. I believe in a reality where God is with me and only with me when I speak the truth and live the truth. And I can trust him with the results.
Dude, I honestly, I don't know what the hell he's saying. God is with me and he's always with me and I can trust him with the result. Is he saying, do your best and don't worry about the rest? I'm so confused. Okay. This is Genova, by the by. Yeah, I'm so incredibly powerful at this point that I'm unbeatable. There's literally nothing that I can do. No boss in this game can beat me. I'm insanely powerful. In fact, this one move might actually do it for me, for this boss.
How do you trust yourself? How do you trust yourself? So fair enough. I buy the argument. I think it's accurate. I think it's the most accurate argument in some ways. But then you come to the next problem, which is, well, there's God and then there's you, and you're just a confused human being. And so how do you take steps to ensure that...
You mean how the heck? Language, good sir. We do not use swear words in this Minecraft, this Christian Minecraft server.
Your judgment about what constitutes the truth is reliable even in your own eyes.
Yeah, right. So how do you know that you are correct about what you believe? Because you're just believing it right now. How do you know? The answer is, you don't.
Well, first of all, you have to want it to be. You
have to want it to be true. Okay, you just have to prefer Christianity over Islam or Buddhism or whatever. That's all. Just prefer it. Okay.
You have to care. You have to have enough humility to know that you could get it wrong. And therefore, to cast yourself on God and say, Lord, help me, because I know that I'm a fallen, sinful human being. I got that much. That's clear to me. And so without your help, I will screw this up. So it's this is part and parcel of what.
Yeah, that's the question, though. Did he miss the question? Did he not hear? Does he have gummy bears in his ears or something? The question was, how do you know you are praying to the right God?
I got that much. That's clear to me. And so without your help, I will screw this up. So it's this is part and parcel of what it is to be free, that it comes with risks. You can get it wrong. But to be cynical and not to try to get it right is really wicked.
So this cheap grace you talked about too, which so I have this interpretation.
Cheap grace, again, is one of those things that he talked about in his book, Cheap Grace.
I'm sure it's not unique to me, but
I don't even remember what cheap grace is supposed to mean now. It was in the very beginning of the book, and I was only lightly paying attention at the beginning because it was boring as sin, but okay.
One of the commandments, which is do not use the Lord's name in vain. And people like to think that means don't swear. And I think in a very trivial sense, that is what it means. But
don't use the Lord's name in vain, i.e. don't say God damn it, I guess, is what people tend to think that means. I think that's what Jordan Peterson here is saying, but apparently he has a different idea of what blasphemy is.
That is what it means. But What it really means, as far as I can tell, is don't pretend to be doing the work of the divine when you're feathering your own nest, right? And
okay, so blasphemy isn't using the Lord's name in vain like the Bible explicitly says it is. Apparently, in this dude's mind, using the Lord's name in vain is doing things for yourself rather than for for God, basically, right? Okay, well, that's an interesting interpretation, and I appreciate that you brought this to my attention, but that's not what the Bible says. So, no.
I really see this as a particularly egregious sin of the times. Pride is a sin of the times, and so is deception, pride and lies. And of course, I think those are the two canonical sins in some real sense. But this notion of easy...
Canonical sins? Pride and what?
The times. Pride is a sin of the times, and so is deception.
Pride and deception are canonical? What does he mean by canonical sins? What the hell does that even mean? What could canonical sin possibly mean? Canon is like something that's largely accepted, like within a world. Like, I read a book called Deathstalker once by Simon R. Green, right? And it's canon that the character's name is Owen Deathstalker. That's canon. That is canonically correct. So pride and what? Pride and deceit are canonically...
Really egregious sin of the times. Pride is a sin of the times, and so is deception, pride and lies. And of course, I think those are the two canonical sins in some...
What does he mean there, the two canonical sins? What the hell could that possibly mean? I am on the struggle bus over here, guys. I need help. Somebody help me understand what this guy is trying to communicate. I am just lost, bro.
Real sense. But this notion of easy moral virtue, almost everything I see on the ideological side appears to me to be an attempt to proclaim moral virtue and...
Okay, now hang on. Let's really break this down. Everything that he sees on the ideological side, I don't know what that even means. Okay, everything he sees on the ideological side proclaims to be what?
To be an attempt to proclaim moral virtue and the accompanying status and perhaps even the pathway to redemption without doing any of the work at all.
I like literally nothing that he just said made any sense. It's not just me, is it? Is he just like saying random words that are completely meaningless? Is he just like completely full of shit? Because it seems like he's completely full of shit to me. That he's just like saying random words that he likes to pretend make sense when put next to each other. Okay, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. There's a Jordan Peterson word salad generator. Let me pull it up. It's called wisdomofpeterson.com. Wisdomofpeterson.com. This is what Peterson, this is Peterson's specialty. More wisdom. Let's pick out some wisdom here. Archetypal truth serves intricate truth, roughly speaking. What does that even mean? I don't know what that means. Here's another. The key to life depends on descriptions of neural networks. That is absolutely something I can see Jordan Peterson saying. Here, let's see more wisdom. Give me more. I want to see more. Hidden meaning transcends new truth. This is basically what's happening right now, right? Dude is he like on the Jordan Peterson word salad generator right now, just clicking more wisdom and picking out random stuff to say? The traditional archetype is inherent in new balance. What does it mean? Literally nothing. The Jordan Peterson word salad generator picks out random words and sticks them next to each other. That's it. That's what we're looking at right now. Now listen again to what Jordan Peterson is saying. Let's just step back 20 seconds. Listen again.
Some real sense. But this notion of easy moral virtue, almost everything I see on the ideological side appears to me to be an attempt to proclaim moral virtue. And
this could come straight from the generator, right? The word salad generator. Does this make any sense at all to anybody? This dude is so full of shit. How did anybody think that this guy had any clue about what he's talking about?
Me to be an attempt to proclaim moral virtue and the accompanying status and perhaps even the pathway to redemption without doing...
Like, I'm not even going to pause and try to understand what this guy's saying anymore. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to skip right past it, and I'm going to assume that we're all in agreement that he's completely full of shit.
Any of the work at all. And I think the universities are terribly complicit in this, because what they basically tell students is the secular equivalent, I think, of what you're complaining about on the Christian side, which is, well, you don't really have to be a good person, which, by the way, is a very difficult thing to do. And the consequence of not doing that is everyone ends up in hell. But you don't really...
I'm picking up a couple of things. I think he said the consequence of not being a good person is you end up in hell. Okay, well, Jesus didn't believe in hell. Hell was not thought of until at least 100 years after Jesus came along. So I'm not even sure what he's talking about when it comes to hell. Like, why are you even bringing it up? What does it have to do with anything?
You have to be a good person. You just have to be against the right things. And conveniently, that'll require, a little protesting on your part. And conveniently, it will enable you to, what would you say, see the devil in everyone else and not in yourself at all. And then you've paid your price and you can trumpet your moral virtue and away you go down the road.
Look, I've completely given up on trying to understand. I don't get it. I'm sorry, man. I don't understand. Now, I can promise you that, look, I have the benefit of a rewind button at my disposal. Eric Metaxas does not. I can just about guarantee that Eric Metaxas has no f***ing clue what Jordan Peterson just said, and he has to come up with some response to something that made no sense at all.
All of which is a satanic counterfeit of the truth.
Okay, that's an option. I suppose he's chosen to also make absolutely no f***ing sense. That works.
I was at Yale in the 80s, and I saw this for the first time. I grew up in a working class home.
Wow, look at him, working class.
No one had gone to college. So here I am at Yale. And for the first time I saw that, we didn't know the term virtue signaling, but it was all there already in
Yeah, well,
the
you were
academy.
at Yale, so
Yeah,
what were you taking?
What does that even mean? Yeah, you were at Yale, so why are you laughing at that? I don't get it. I'm done taking this shit seriously. I am 100% through with it. This is two dudes yanking each other off and pretending to understand what the other one is saying. That's it. That is what's happening right now. Are you going to deprive us of this epic endgame music? The answer is yes, because Square Enix is made up of copyright hawks. If I play the music, they will give me a copyright strike, so I will not play the music, sorry.
Academy. I was taking penicillin, but we can't talk about that. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I was.
Wow, he said, what were you taking at Yale? And he said I was taking penicillin, but we're not talking about it. I like that. That's a good joke, too. Eric Metaxas has a couple of good one-liners. The joke is he had gonorrhea. Okay, that's good.
I guess that's how you Canadians put it. I was an English major.
At Yale.
English literature at Yale, yeah. But the thing is that concept Well, I managed to avoid critical theory and all that, although I did once escort Jacques Derrida across a courtyard with an umbrella. I wrote a poem about it. But the point is that while I was there, for the first time I saw the virtue signaling.
He managed to avoid critical theory, he said. Okay, if you guys don't know what critical race theory is, it is actually a class that's taken in law school, as it turns out, and it's a lens through which you view the law. It's intentionally looking at the United States and the law in such a way that you can try to figure out how certain people live or certain people are treated or whatever. It's a way of changing your perspective. And that's valuable. You must learn to change your perspective as a law student. So anyway, critical race theory is an extremely important class in law school. And this guy was an English literature major and said he avoided critical theory. Okay, I don't know why they would teach critical anything theory in English literature, because you're not supposed to be changing your perspective on the law, but all right.
And I was taken in by it. I was young and naive and foolish. And I, for the first time, saw, you don't say this, you say this. Be careful about this. But, you know, we don't say Oriental, we say Asian. We say, this is what we're...
So he's saying that he was introduced for the first time to the euphemism treadmill. The euphemism treadmills existed since time immemorial, since the very beginning. There are words that have been deprecated over the years. And as a matter of fact, that's how scholars today can date Greek writings to within 50 years, from all the way back to 3,000 years ago. They can date Greek writings all the way back then. This is the end game scene, by the way, if you've never seen it before. Let me just give you an example. Okay, 1970 was 50 years ago, right? I might actually have to blur this ending out because of copyright. I don't know. We'll see. Let me give you some 1970s insults, okay? Eat my shorts. Hug a root. F*** you. That was apparently one of the insults in the 70s, so that one stands today. Go take a long walk off a short pier. Sit on it. Up your nose with a rubber hose. Your mother. I'm not even joking. These are real. These are real insults from the 70s. That is how, like, if you saw one of these as a scholar 500 years in the future, you saw one of these insults in a writing in the year 2600 or something, you would know it was from between the years 1950 and 1990, right? You could date it to within that range, because it becomes offensive at a certain point to say certain things, or it just gets like deprecated, like people just stop using it. You know, saying go take a long walk off a short pier is really offensive to some people, or saying or calling people Negro, Negro. That was a common way of referring to the black community for a long time. No longer. You don't call people that. That's offensive. Then you called them colored people. You don't do that now. It's people of color. And things change over time. It's worked that way since the very beginning. Here are some insults from the 1920s. Munswatcher, Chattermag, Gongoozler, Bearcat, Slackumtrance, Fustalugs, Zounderkite. These things were offensive to people, so they stopped using them. And then people just forgot what they were, and now they're no longer offensive, and people just don't even care about them anymore. The euphemism treadmill. The point is that the euphemism treadmill has existed forever. We always, since the beginning, have always come up with new words to insult people or to whatever, and then we've changed those words to something else, and because they were too offensive. And there's always been this guy right here complaining about the fact that those words are changing. I still want to call people colored people. I still want to call them Negroes. I still want to do this or that. Everyone is getting all woke. They're all changing, and I want to stay the same. There have been people like this since the beginning, since the 1300s. I have quotes back to the 1300s of people complaining about being too sensitive and about dressing like prostitutes. I'm not even joking. So this guy's saying that he discovered the euphemism treadmill. Yeah, welcome to the club. By the way, guys, anybody listening to this right now, when you get older, if you haven't already, you're going to discover the euphemism treadmill. Don't be Eric Metaxas, okay? When the time comes that the word idiot or loser or moron is deprecated and people prefer not to use it, just stop using it. It's not a big deal. We have new insults. Use the new one. Call people ridiculous instead. In 20 years, ridiculous is going to be ridiculous and offensive, and you won't be able to use that one. Just go along with it, okay? That's how the world works. Anyway, I guess he's saying he discovered the euphemism treadmill. That's the point. Great.
Supposed to believe that we're all of that kind of stuff. And I kind of thought, oh, well, you know, to get along, I guess I have to, yes. But it was there in strength in the 80s already. And of course, it filtered its way down into the culture. And here we are.
Right from Yale and right from the English department, as a matter of fact.
That's quite right. Quite right. Yeah, it's unpleasant to talk about, so let's avoid it.
Give me a break, man. The euphemism treadmill has existed since the beginning. Since we've had language, people have become offended at certain words and changed them. 20 years later, they're offended at the changes, and they change them again.
But the point is that it is ultimately, I mean, there's great irony. Irony is the happy way of putting it. It's think about this. You're dealing with cultural Marxism.
Oh my God, dude, cultural Marxism. He talked about cultural Marxism in his book too, and I intend to, like, I've written a few things down that I intend to address and to break down in more detail when I do write about his book, Letter to the Christian Church. Cultural Marxism basically means, okay, there's something called equity and there's something called equality, right? And this is a good, what do you call, like a good illustration of it right here. On the left, we have equality. Everybody has one box to stand on to watch a baseball game. That's equality. The tall guy that's 6 feet tall, he has a box. The 4 foot tall kid, he has a box. The little kid, the 5-year-old who's really short, he has a box also. But equality doesn't always lead to fairness, to fair outcomes. So equality is not the same as fairness. Equity would be where everybody has a fair shot, not fair outcomes, not like there are 400 white billionaires, so there should be 400 black billionaires too. That's not equity. That is not quote-unquote cultural Marxism, what he's calling cultural Marxism. It's fairness. It's the guarantee that people will be given a fair shake, whether they're black or white, whether they're short or tall, whether they're, whatever. Doesn't matter. Everyone will be given a fair shake. Studies have shown that people with black-sounding names on their resume are less likely to get jobs, to get job positions, than people with white-sounding names. You know, Shaquanda is less likely to get a job than John, for example. That is inequality. So we aren't even on the left here. We're trying to get to the left. Once we get to the left, maybe we can get to the center, equity, where everybody has a fair shake. Rather than an equal shake, maybe we can have a fair shake. In reality, white people in the United States, of course, not every white person. I grew up broke as dog shit. I ate buttered bread for who knows how long, until the point that, I realized that we had sugar and cinnamon. So I started toasting my bread and sprinkling, after putting butter on, sprinkling sugar and cinnamon on and eating that. I can't tell you how long I ate that. I ate that until I can't believe I didn't get scurvy. Anyway, not every white person, but there are 400 or something white billionaires and only like 3 black ones. Oprah, Beyonce, and Jay-Z, I think, are the only black billionaire. Maybe Michael Jordan? I'm not even sure. The point is that we want equity. We want people to be even, to be fair. We want things to be fair. That's what we should shoot for in a society, right? When Eric Metaxas says cultural Marxism,
think about this. You're dealing with cultural Marxism.
When he says cultural Marxism, what he's talking about is this middle thing here, this equity thing. Think about this. We're dealing with equity. That's what cultural Marxism is, equity. But, interestingly, it closely mirrors the term cultural Bolshevism, which is a famous term used by Hitler back in the day, back in World War II. Cultural Marxism, by the by, is a conspiracy theory. Just read a little bit of the Wikipedia page for cultural Marxism here. Let's just read the term, or let's read cultural Marxism like the Wikipedia page. The term cultural Marxism refers to a far-right anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that misrepresents the Frankfurt School as being responsible for modern progressive movements, identity politics, and political correctness. The reason that it's anti-Semitic, that it's labeled anti-Semitic here, is because of its ties to cultural Bolshevism from World War II. Hitler used to talk about cultural Bolshevism, which it talks about in a minute. The conspiracy theory posits that there's an ongoing and intentional academic and intellectual effort to subvert Western society via a planned culture war that undermines the Christian values of traditionalist conservatism and seeks to replace them with culturally liberal values. A contemporary revival of the Nazi propaganda term cultural Bolshevism, the contemporary version of the conspiracy theory, originated in the U.S. during the 90s. So cultural Marxism was revived in the 90s off of cultural Bolshevism. Cultural Bolshevism, sometimes referred to specifically as art Bolshevism, music Bolshevism, or sexual Bolshevism, was a term widely used by state-sponsored critics in Nazi Germany to denounce secularist, modernist, and progressive cultural movements. The term is closely related to the Jewish Bolshevism conspiracy theory. So all this stuff is connected to each other. Cultural Marxism, cultural Bolshevism, Jewish Bolshevism, it's all linked together. So when you hear somebody talk about cultural Marxism, they probably don't realize this. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he doesn't know this. It's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Let's just assume he doesn't know that. Give him the benefit of the doubt here. I don't know why I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I am.
Avoid critical theory and all that, although I did once escort Jacques Derrida across a courtyard with an umbrella. I wrote a poem about it. But the point is that while I was there...
Okay, what you just heard, it feels like it was in the middle of a sentence, right? That's pretty much how the whole conversation goes. It feels like you're jumping in in the middle of a sentence because neither of these people make any sense, and neither of them have any idea what the other is talking about. It's kind of funny to watch.
For the first time, I saw the virtue signaling, and I was taken in by it. I was young and naive and foolish.
What virtue signaling?
And I, for the first time, saw, you don't say this, you say this. Be careful about this. You know, we don't say Oriental, we say Asian. We say this is what we're supposed to believe, that we're all of that kind of stuff. And I kind of thought, oh, well, you know, to get along, I guess I have to, yes.
Wait, the what? The catechism?
Stuff. And I kind of thought, oh, well, you know, to get along, I guess
The catechism. I mean, that's a religious term. That's the catechism is a Catholic term, right? He's implying that there's a religious element to this whole thing. Like, if you don't adhere to the euphemism treadmill, then you are not following the religion. And that's why Jordan Peterson feels entitled to say the N-word. No, in all seriousness, the euphemism treadmill has existed for like ever, okay? It is part of society. It's been part of, it's part of humanity. Part of who we are as human beings. Euphemism treadmill. People hear words, they get offended by those words, and after 10, 20, sometimes 30 years, they deprecate those words and they change them. Right now we say stupid. Right now we say idiot or dumbass or loser or moron. In 50 years, that's going to be offensive, and I'm going to say things like ridiculous or outrageous. You know, that's how it works. Welcome to reality. Your first time? No, is he aware of this, or is he just looking for, like, an excuse to use the N-word? That's what it seems like is happening to me, honestly. Like, get over yourself. Look, Eric Metaxas is an English literature major, and I think he has a PhD in the field. He knows what the euphemism treadmill is. You cannot convince me he does not know what that is.
I have to, yes. But it was there in strength in the 80s already. And of course, it filtered its way down into the culture. And here we are.
Right from Yale and right from the English department.
He went to Yale. He's in the English department at Yale University, okay? Eric Metaxas was. You can't convince me he didn't know what the euphemism treadmill was. They probably had a whole class on it. And he's sitting here complaining about it like this is like a revelation or something. Like, please, man, get over yourself. This is insane.
As a matter of fact, right?
That's quite right. Quite right.
Yeah,
it's unpleasant to talk about, so let's avoid it. But the point is that
it's unpleasant to talk about, so let's avoid it. What?
It is ultimately, I mean, there's great irony. Irony is the happy way of putting it. It's think about this. You're dealing with cultural Marxism. They don't believe in God. They don't believe.
Who is they? Are they in the room with us right now, Eric? Cultural Marxism is, they may not even realize this, but it's an anti-Semitic trope. It's an anti-Semitic dog whistle. In World War II, Hitler used to refer to cultural Bolshevism. And it was a way of pointing out that Jews controlled everything, basically. Now we've got cultural Marxism, which is effectively the same thing. There's no difference. This is just sad, man.